Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza is brought to you by Sport Relay. Honest, unbiased, and apolitical. Sport Relay, your connection to the diamond. And by A Complete History of the Major League Baseball Playoffs, Volumes 1 and 2, by Evan Thompson. Relive the glory. A Complete History of the Major League Baseball Playoffs.
This week on Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza, we take you through the current reliever free agent signings. We take you through the best closers available. We take you through the best setup men still available. We take you through the best middle relievers still available. And veteran sportswriter Barry M. Bloom, who has covered baseball for 51 years, returns to discuss reliever free agency as well as the Hall of Fame, both the upcoming contemporary era committee vote and his own Hall of Fame ballot. Don't go away! Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza begins now. Welcome to Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza. I'm your host, Evan Thompson, Editor-in-Chief, National Writer, and Athletics Writer at Sport Relay. Also wrote these two books, A Complete History of the Major League Baseball Playoffs, Volume 1, The Pre-Divisional Tiebreakers through 1976, and Volume 2, 1977 through 1984. Volume 2 also includes the 1978 AL East tiebreaker game between the Yankees and Red Sox, also known as the Bucky Dent game, and the 1980 NL West tiebreaker between the Astros and Dodgers, also known as the Joe Niekro game. If you are interested in ordering a copy or two for the upcoming holiday season, there are links in the description box below this video. It's free agency season, and we have all the latest information for you here on who has been signed and who is left. Let's start with the relievers who have already been signed. Dollar-wise, the biggest free agent deal for a relief pitcher so far came when Devin Williams left the New York Yankees for the crosstown New York Mets. Monday, Williams agreed to terms with the Mets on a 3-year, $51 million deal, which works out to an average annual value of $17 million. The 31-year-old Williams joined the Yankees in a trade from the Milwaukee Brewers after the 2024 season. He did not work out as the Yankees' closer, losing his job early in the 2025 season. He did, however, do decently in a setup role, ending the season as the AL's number 11 setup man in this show's rankings. Here you can see his stats for the season. For reference, the American League relief averages listed at the bottom in the rate stats were .1297 whip, a 2.8 home run percentage, 23.5 K percentage or strikeout percentage, 9.4 walk percentage, 14.1 K minus walk percentage, 3.2 goose eggs per broken egg, 72.5 scoreless outing percentage, the version where we only count earned runs against a relief pitcher, and a 29.6 inherited runners scored percentage. Ryan Helsley agreed to a 2-year, $28 million deal with the Baltimore Orioles on Saturday, November 29th to be their closer. This will be an even rate deal, netting the two-time All-Star $14 million per season. Helsley, the 2024 Sport Relay National League Closer of the Year and 2024 Trevor Hoffman Award winner, struggled in 2025. He began the season as the closer for the St. Louis Cardinals, the only major league team he had been with since his 2019 debut. Here are his numbers with the Cardinals. As you take a look, bear in mind the National League relief averages in the rate stats were 1304 whip, 2.8 home run percentage, 22.5 strikeout percentage, 9.2 walk percentage, 13.3 strikeout minus walk percentage, 3.1 goose eggs per broken egg, 72.2 scoreless outing percentage, earned runs only, and 33.7 inherited runners scored percentage. At the trade deadline, the Cardinals traded Helsley to the New York Mets for 3 prospects. With Edwin Diaz firmly entrenched as the Mets' closer, Helsley took on a setup role with the team and did not do well. Here are his Mets numbers. The only rate stat in which he did better than the National League average was strikeout percentage. Note that his whip was nearly 500 points higher than the 1304 National League average, for example. And here are his overall numbers for the 2025 season. The other two closer signings so far were re-signings. Emilio Pagan earned a 2-year, $20 million deal to stay with the Reds, with the news breaking Wednesday night. Pagan began the season as one of the setup men for then Reds closer Alexis Diaz. But when Diaz struggled, Pagan became the closer. He ended the season as the number 9 closer in the National League after putting up better than average numbers in almost every rate stat. His efforts helped the Reds earn the 3rd wildcard spot in the National League. Back on November 19th, the Atlanta Braves re-signed closer Raisel Iglesias to a 1-year, $16 million deal. Iglesias mostly struggled up to the trade deadline before having an outstanding rest of the season, even netting the Sport Relay National League Closer of the Month and the league-sanctioned National League Reliever of the Month for August. The Chicago Cubs signed Phil Maton to a 2-year deal worth a minimum of $14.5 million. It includes a club option for a 3rd year with a $3 million buyout. Maton will make $5.5 million in 2026 and $6 million in 2027. If the Cubs pick him up for 2028, he will earn $8.5 million that year, meaning the contract, excluding incentives, could get him $19.5 million. Maton spent 2025 as a setup man for the St. Louis Cardinals before the Redbirds shipped him to the Texas Rangers at the trade deadline. Maton both served as a setup man and the closer for the Rangers. When putting his overall score against other AL setup men, he ranked 3rd. Against other AL closers, he was 8th. We can do that because our scoring system for setup men and for closers is exactly the same for those who are either new or have forgotten. News first broke of this deal November 21st, with the club confirming it November 25th. Now for a pair of middle relievers. The Atlanta Braves re-signed Joel Payamps November 24th, giving him a 1-year, $2.25 million deal. Payamps did not have a good season in 2025, beginning the season with the Milwaukee Brewers and even being sent down to AAA before being designated for assignment September 20th. 2 days later, the Braves claimed him off waivers. The Braves are, obviously, hoping for a rebound season from Payamps. Wednesday, the Cleveland Guardians signed middle reliever Connor Brogdon to a 1-year, $900,000 contract. Brogdon also struggled in the 2025 season, but the Guardians like his 6'6" frame and his pitch mix. The Guardians have excelled in building a strong relief unit in recent years, so it will be interesting to see what they can do with Brogdon. Here is a list of all the free agent reliever signings through Thursday morning, December 4th. Now let's take a look at the closers still available. Edwin Diaz is the best available option as far as ranking and is also the youngest, so naturally he's probably going to reap the richest contract. He also received a qualifying offer from the Mets, further limiting the offers he could receive. We will talk more about that later on with Barry Bloom. The others available are National League saves leader Robert Suarez, Sean Armstrong, veteran and likely Hall of Famer Kenley Jansen, Kyle Finnegan, and Pete Fairbanks. With Fairbanks being the 2nd youngest available, and with the age distance between him and the 3rd youngest, expect to see several teams bid for him. Here are the setup men still out there. Highest ranking goes to Luke Weaver, who finished number 9 in the American League. Lowest ranking of those who qualify goes to Luis A. Garcia, who finished number 20 in the American League. There are also 5 out there who did not pitch in enough games to qualify for our rankings. And the best middle relievers still available. We've only listed players who were in the top 30 of their respective leagues. There are 4 available relievers who are in the top 10 of their respective leagues, and 6 from the top 15. There are also 9 lefties on this list. Be sure to follow us for the latest updates, as we will have it all for you here. Our handle on X, formerly known as Twitter, @RRBB_show. Had to put the underscore show because RRBB was too short. Or my account on X, formerly Twitter, @Evan_M_Thompson. Up next, Barry Bloom and his takes on reliever free agency, as well as the upcoming Hall of Fame votes. Don't go away. Welcome back to Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza. Returning guest here, sports writer, longtime sports writer in his 51st year covering Major League Baseball. Welcome back to the show, Barry Bloom.
Or as Bill Maher would say, returning champion.
Returning champion.
How do you how do you like the cap?
It's a good cap.
Pretty.
It's a good cap. I don't recall seeing that one. Is that a new one?
Yeah, I've got a whole bunch of these.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, Barry, start off talking about the free agency as it relates to relievers. The four biggest who have already signed are Devin Williams, Ryan Helsley, then Emilio Pagan re-signed with the Reds yesterday, and Raisel Iglesias re-signed with the Braves. Those are the four biggest contracts. We can start off with Williams. What do you think of the deal that he got from the Mets?
Yeah, I think it was a great deal, and I don't think he was going to get that from the Yankees. I think the Yankees were happy for whatever he contributed last year, but I don't think he, in their minds, fit into the Bronx the way they thought he would. He had a lot of shaky periods. I never thought it was because he couldn't pitch in the Bronx as opposed to Milwaukee. He just had problems finding the plate. And when his slider wasn't on the mark, you'd get in there and you knew which Williams you were going to have in there when the first pitch was ball one, the second pitch is ball two, and then you're walking the first batter and okay, here we go. The bases are loaded. He's going to have to pitch out of trouble. They're going to have to pull him out of the ball game. I mean, he lost his closer's job by and large because of that. And certainly after they got Benadar at the trade deadline, that was that for him being the closer. So how many setup men do you need? They've had Weaver, they had him. I'm not sure what he does with the Mets. I still think the Mets will be in the market to re-sign Diaz. I think he wants to stay there, and I think he's a viable part of the team. So he'll probably be a $51 million setup guy for the Mets too. And who knows how he'll do there. I'm sure he'll probably have the same problems. I mean, he didn't have a great year in 2024 for the Brewers either. He was hurt. His numbers weren't great. And I don't think it was that big a deal that they traded him. So he's one of those guys. You just basically never know what you're going to get in a given year. And maybe him having the security of a 3-year deal is going to make a difference.
Yeah, and with the Yankees, he did do better as a setup man than as a closer. He was much better as a setup man, but like you said, it was which Williams are you getting that night. So if the Mets use him as a setup man, maybe he'll have a better year. Who knows? And then with Helsley, he had a better time with the Cardinals last year than the Mets, but his whip was really high. He was putting a lot of guys on base, so there were signs of things to come. And then when he went to the Mets, his year turned into a disaster. Orioles got him for 2 years, $28 million. Is this a big risk? Is this a worthwhile risk? Is it a risk? What do you think of this deal?
Well, it depends on how the Orioles are going to use him. If they put him back into his role as a closer, he should be fine. I think he went from the Cardinals. He was the closer. He wasn't having a great year. They weren't going to re-sign him. They just wanted to get some bodies for him. So they traded him at the deadline. And the Mets right away were not going to close him. They had Diaz. So now you're basically saying in midstream of the season, well, you're not a closer anymore. You're a setup guy, which is something he's not accustomed to doing. And it's sort of like your whole mindset collapses. And if you don't have any immediate success doing what you're doing, then you're going to have a crappy season, rest of the season, which is what happened with him. And I don't think it's any secret why it happened. So I think if the Orioles put him back to his role as closer and just let him pitch, he's just going to be fine.
Yeah. Do you think the everything being thrown off by him being a setup man led to him tipping his pitches?
Well, you never know with that, and you never know, what he's doing. I'm not that familiar with whether they were he was tipping his pitches or not. But sometimes it's what you're throwing up there. You don't have to tip your pitches. Their pitches are so bad, you're going to get hit anyway. So not going to know whether or not. Who cares whether it's a fastball, a slider, a sinker, whatever? If you know it coming in, if the pitch is bad, you're going to hit it. I mean, it's like the old story with Greg Maddux and Tony Gwynn, where I think I probably told you this one before, where when Tony came into the league, and Maddux would throw him a pitch on the outside, he'd hit it to the left field for base hit, or for and then throw it on the inside, he'd hit it to right field for a base hit. So finally, Maddux just walked halfway to the plate to Tony and yelled at him, "This is a fastball. You might as well know what I'm going to throw because you're going to hit it somewhere anyway." So, I mean, you have those situations where, or a guy like Rivera, who was so good, he had one pitch, that
Yeah.
split finger fastball, and you knew what was coming, but it was so good it didn't matter whether you knew. You knew it was coming. That was his only pitch. He wasn't mixing anything else in, but you still couldn't hit it. If you knew that Sandy Koufax's curveball was coming, so what? It would drop off a shelf right in front of you, and there's nothing you could do about it. So the whole thing with tipping pitches is, I think, overrated anyway.
Yeah, he was hanging a lot of sliders. You hang a slider, I don't care. I don't care who you are. It's gonna
Right.
get hit hard. That's all there is to it.
You hang anything.
Yeah, these guys are pros. They're the best in the world. They made the majors for a reason. So, yeah. And then we saw Pagan and Iglesias re-sign with their teams. Now, Iglesias did not have a very good season for most of the year. He had 2 good months at the end, but he wasn't very good. He still got a 1-year deal from the Braves for $16 million. What do you think the Braves were thinking there?
Well, I think that the first 4 months of the season, the Braves weren't very good, period, were they? So he was
No, they
just,
were not.
yeah, he was part and parcel of their entire downturn and how bad their season was. And so, new manager, different coaches, hopefully they'll come into the season with guys who were hurt, will be able to start the season. Uh, they'll be in better shape and they'll get off to a better, run at it. And they probably figured, we know what we've got here. And when he's effective, he's effective. And when he's not, he's not. But who's out there? Look at the market and see what's available. Are we better off signing anybody else to replace him? And if he wants to stay here, let's sign him. So I think that all goes into it pretty much.
Okay. And then Pagan signed last night. It was 2 years, $20 million, so average value of $10 million a year. Is it pronounced Spotrac or Spotrac? The
My track.
Spotrac, yeah. Spotrac had him valued at 12.3 something. So Reds got him for a little less than that. What's your take on the Pagan signing?
Again, it's another thing. You're familiar with the guy. He had a pretty good year for you. You look at the market, like I just said with Iglesias.
Hmm.
You look at what's available out in the market, and you have a guy you're familiar with. And I'm sure, Tito has a lot of input into this. And it's like when they're asking him, what do you want to do with the guy? And do you want us to go out as anybody else out in the market you'd rather have? And Tito looks at the market and says, no, I'm familiar with this guy. He did a good job for me. If he wants to come back, sign him. And I think that's all there is to it.
Yeah, and he had a big opportunity come to him last year because, as you might recall, the Reds started the year with Alexis Diaz as the closer, and Pagan was a setup man. And then Diaz did not have a good start to the year at all. Reds ended up letting him go. Pagan became the closer, and he did a really good job. So,
Yeah, I think Pagani is a guy who, you know, he's been bounced around. He's always had the stuff. He's been electric at times and never really gotten the opportunity. Maybe this is his opportunity to really emerge as, the type of reliever everybody once thought he would be. I think he was with the Padres for a while as a setup guy too,
Hmm.
and I always liked him. And it's like I thought he was very effective. And any reliever, if you no matter where you put him in the game, if that reliever throws strikes, I don't care how hard that person throws or what that person throws. I mean, Trevor Hoffman was throwing 89-mile-an-hour fastballs and an 86-mile-an-hour, changeup, and basically it was enough distance between those two pitches to keep batters off kilter, and all he did was throw strikes. I mean, if you all you do is throw strikes, you're going to be a hell of a reliever. There's no secret to all this.
Right. I remember Ryan Spilborghs told me he faced Trevor Hoffman quite a bit, and he said a big thing about Hoffman was his fastball and changeup. As far as the windup and the delivery looked, they were exactly the same, and so by doing that, he was able to just keep your timing completely off, and obviously he saved over 600 games. So I mean, but anyway,
Well,
one
did Philly
signing that kind of go ahead
hit anybody?
has what did
I
Spilly hit
was,
anybody? He hit a
yeah,
few guys.
I was teasing him recently. Basically, he was the DH in the 2007 World Series in Boston at Fenway Park,
Mhm.
and he was like over 12 or something. I mean, it's like, and he goes, "Oh, thanks, you have to remind me of that." And I go, "It's like Spilly's the DH against Ortiz. I mean, did Boston have a big advantage in that? But that's Spilly. He's a better announcer than he was a player."
Yeah. Well, and Corey Sullivan hit 333 in that World Series. And do you think Corey brings that up to Ryan on a regular basis?
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, of course he does. Yeah. Now, one signing that kind of went under the radar, but I think is one of the more important ones, Phil Maton, who was an excellent setup man last year, went to the Cubs. They got him on a 2-year deal for 14.5 million. Do you think this could be a big step for the Cubs going forward? Getting a guy like Maton?
I think what it does is there's a realism that's checking in now that with bullpens, you have eight guys, 9 guys in the bullpen. Every one of them has to do something. They have to be this idea, and I've had this argument for 2 years since the whole idea of high leverage and low leverage relievers came into play. And I
Hmm.
go, you should spend money on your bullpen, and everybody should be able to do everything. And if you need to use them in a low leverage situation, i.e., you're down 5 runs, as opposed to you're up 5 or up 2 or up 1 or whatever, you should be able to use every one of your relievers in that situation where you don't have 3 guys who are sitting there and do nothing for 4 days because you're playing close games and you need your high leverage relievers, and now you're burning them out after 3 or 4 days because you're using them every day, but your other guys are just sitting there in the pen. I mean, how stupid is this? So maybe it gets to the point where maybe, and I'm just saying maybe, you have some guys in baseball ops who are looking at this and saying, we really have to build out these bullpens because, we're killing our bullpens. When starters don't go 5 or 6 innings and you're going into your bullpen every day, you're just wasting them by the time the middle of the season is around. And that's where I think a guy like Maton, he had a good season last year. He's not a particularly high level guy, but I think it's a recognition that you got to have these guys like Wolf in the World Series in the 18 inning game. I mean, the
Yes.
guy had never pitched more than half a dozen pitches or a dozen pitches in a game, and he comes in and throws like 40, and
Yeah.
that couldn't have been a more high leverage situation than that in extra innings in a tie game where every pitch could lose the game, and then he pitched great.
Hmm.
And the Dodgers don't win that game and probably don't win that World Series without the contribution he made. And of course, he got help from Schneider because Schneider, trying to win the game early, did a Torey Lovello and wasted his entire bench. And he wound up with a lot of his good frontline hitters out of the game already because he pitch ran for them, did all kinds of shifts trying to win the game in 9 innings. And when you went into the 10th, now you're coming around and, all you have is one or two frontline hitters. I mean, they took Kirk out of the game in like the 8th inning. So everything was made about Smith catching all 18 innings. Well, Kirk never got the chance because he ran for him in like the 7th, 8th, or 9th inning. I don't remember exactly what it was. So it was a perfect situation for a guy like Wolf, and look what he did. So that's where I think maybe, and I'm giving maybe the Cubs more credit than they deserve here because I'm giving the inference into something that I've noticed and has become a craw under my skin in recent years. There's a couple of them long term. One is 2 out, nobody on, and you can't get the last out. And so you walk the third guy, let up a base hit. Now the guy behind you either walks or gets a base hit, and you're turning around the lineup when you could have just walked out of got the out and walked out of that. I hate that. Mm-hmm. And so, that's one of my big craws. And, this one is too. Every reliever should be able to do everything.
Yeah, and Maton, after because he was set up for the Cardinals, and after he went to the Rangers, he was set up for a bit, and then he also closed. He can do all of it. He can be both a setup man or a closer. He's been very good there.
Another one of my former Padres.
Right.
A reliever, somewhere along the way, a reliever is always going to go through the Padres, either coming up or coming in. I mean, you look at it, they are no matter what San Diego does over the course of their history, and they're deficient in every other department besides relieving, but their relief pitching has just been stellar every time a new reliever comes in closer. And I did this with Hader. I did it with Miller this year. And I go over, do you know the history of Padre relievers? And I go, Raleigh Fingers, Goose Gossage, Trevor Hoffman, all in the Hall of Fame. Mark Davis, NL Cy Young Award winner in 1989. Mm-hmm. Then you add, the Heath Bells and a half a dozen other guys, Houston Street. They've always got a good reliever. Yeah. And it's like you inherit that job and that mantle with the Padres. Now you look at their starters, and their starters are pathetic. I mean, their all-time leading starter, Eric Shaw, still has 100 wins, and he hasn't pitched for them since the late 80s. And Jake Peavy, who should have broken that record, was traded to the White Sox before he could. I think he finished with 92.
Yeah.
And so they haven't had a starting pitcher who's pitched there long enough since that era to basically have more than 100 wins.
Yeah, when I started watching as an 8-year-old in 1988, Eric Shaw was pitching for them, and he was on the tail end of his Padre reign. And another thing about the Padres, like you mentioned, 1/3 of the relievers in the Hall of Fame pitched for them. But also with the Padres, they do a really good job of letting relievers go at the right time. Like right before they start to fall off a cliff, they know when their expiration date's about to hit.
Well, that's another one of my pet peeves, though. Hoffman should have finished his career there.
I agree.
Got his 6 save there. I mean, and they tried to lowball him, and they pushed him out. But no, Sandy Olafson did that, and it's like I always been angry at John Moores for the fact that he didn't protect him, give him a decent contract, and let him finish his career there. He didn't want that much, but they offered him $500,000. It was pathetic, and it's sort of like, and Trevor wanted to meet with John, and he wanted to have a meeting with him about what the future of the ball club was, because he felt like, hey, if you're going to build back up this ball club, I'll take $500,000 and come back. But John refused to have the meeting with him.
You don't do that to certain people. Padres, You don't do that to Trevor Hoffman. You don't fire Jeff Conine from the Marlins. I mean, that type of thing, too. That's probably my biggest irritation, but that's a different topic, was the way Jeff Conine. What's that?
It happened with Moores because when Tony Gwynn was at the end of his career, he turned over Moore's and shook him down for every bit of change that he had in his pockets and made him pay for every other ownership there that didn't really pay him. And
Uh,
so, Moore's signed him a contract at the end that he really didn't believe. He let sentiment, get to him. I think, like you're saying, with all these players, you can't let sentiment get to you.
right.
Like I'm surprised the Dodgers re-signed Rojas. It's like they didn't re-sign Bueller, did they? And
They didn't
Bueller,
re-sign who?
Bueller,
No, they didn't. He walked and he ended up going to Boston.
right?
Yeah.
And without him, he closed out the 2024 World Series.
Yeah.
He was as big for them in 2024 as Rojas was, but they brought back Rojas. A
Yeah.
little bit of sentimentality there.
What's that?
A little bit of sentimentality there.
Yeah, I think so. And you brought up that Bueller was like a right away. I find it interesting of the last three guys to close out the World Series pitching wise, two of them are no longer with that team because Josh Sborz, Rangers just let him go, but Sborz has been hurt the whole time since that World Series, so that's a different story. But still, I find it kind of odd that two of the last three are no longer with the team. But
Well, I wonder how long the Jeff Hoffman's going to be with the Blue Jays after letting up that home run to
oh
Rojas.
oh boy, I hope he has Mitch Williams' phone number because if anyone knows how to counsel somebody through that, and you know what, since they were both Phillies, I bet you Jeff does have Mitch Williams' phone number. So,
I could just see Mitch shaking his head when that happened.
oh yeah, oh man, and I mean, you and I both know Jeff Hoffman. He's about as nice a guy as you'll meet, and so I mean, I couldn't help but feel for him just from that standpoint because he's just such a good guy.
I wasn't there because I didn't write about that angle, but when I saw the tape of him standing in front of his locker, taking the blame for them losing the World Series, it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm sitting in the press box watching this, and I'm watching Shohei Ohtani in the on deck circle, and I'm thinking, wow, Shohei Ohtani could be the last out of this World Series. How about that?
Yeah,
And then Rojas hits the home run.
yeah, and Joe Davis's call of that home run, I think summed up what all of us were thinking because he just went, "Hey!" as soon as it landed in the stands. We're like, "This guy?" That's more surprising than Bucky Dent. That would be like Mike Gallego hitting the game time home run in Game 7 of the World Series or something. But
Well, this guy hadn't hit a home run in like a month.
yeah, September 19th was his last home run, and his last base
Right.
hit was October 1st, and this game was November 1st. Um, Now, turning back to the closers that are still available, Edwin Diaz is out there. Robert Suarez is out there. Kenley Jansen is out there. The other ones that are still available, Sean Armstrong is out there. He closed for the Rangers, and then Pete Fairbanks. The two that Spotrac has ranked the highest, or Spotrac has ranked the highest as far as market value, are Diaz and Fairbanks, with Jansen very close behind Fairbanks. But Diaz does have a qualifying offer from the Mets. For the viewers who don't really know what that means, could you explain that real quick?
Well, it's pretty complicated. So to get into not to get into too much of the weeds, a team can reserve some draft pick compensation by offering a free agent, a first-time free agent, who has been with the team the entire season,
Mhm.
qualifying offer, which this year was just around $22 million.
Okay.
So, and for the life of me, I don't understand it. And I've had conversations with Tony Clark about it. And, it puts a drag on free agency signings if these guys have this qualifying offer because teams don't want to give up what amounts to a tweener draft pick. Like some teams, to me, it's an excuse. the Yankees last year, they didn't care that they had to give up a draft pick when they signed Fried for 7 years, $218 million. Look at the year he had.
Yeah.
And so they lost a fourth round draft choice to the Atlanta Braves. It's like, really? And when I talked to Clark about it, he said that major league teams value this draft pick at $25 million. Doesn't matter who he is, what he does, whether he makes the league or not. That's what they do. So it's 25 million off the top of what they're paying a player to sign them as a free agent. So I think if you're serious about winning, you don't care. If you're not serious about winning, then you worry about the draft pick and the $25 million. So that's why it puts a drag on that person in the market. And, in recent years, it hasn't been, can't think of a reliever that it's affected, but, the 1 year, all of Scott Burrow's clients in the last 2 years have had to sign 1 year contracts with an option or 2 years or 1 year with two options. Bellinger signed 1 year, two options with the Cubs, got traded to the Yankees. Montgomery signed 1 year with the Diamondbacks. He wound up picking up the option because he was hurt, and he had such a bad year. Then he blew out his arm, and they wound up having to pay him anyway and traded him.
Mm-hmm.
But Chapman signed with the Giants late in that season, 24 season. They signed him long term because there was no qualifying offer.
Mm-hmm.
Blake Snell signed with the Dodgers with a huge deal, and he couldn't get, past the year before with the qualifying offer. So, yeah, probably as good a reliever as Diaz is, it's going to put a drag on him unless a team like the Dodgers or the Yankees want to sign him and pay him the money and don't care about that tweener draft pick. I mean, it's not like you're losing your first round pick. And even if it's a first round pick, it's lower. If you're a good team, it's lower in the round. Mm-hmm. And if you spend over a certain amount of money in luxury taxes, your pick goes down even further into the depths below the first and second round. It goes further down, like what happened to the Yankees this year. Mm-hmm. Or last year. I think they need to get rid of it. It only affects 12 or 13 players every year. And this year you had 4 players accept it, mm-hmm. which is unheard of. Right. Most years nobody accepts it. But this year, I guess people I'll take the money, I'll take the 22 million, and I'll go back out in the market next year without it on my shoulder. It's because you can't give it to the same player again.
Right.
So it's just a complicated system that really, I think, mucks up the system.
Okay. Yeah, and Diaz can still sign with the Mets, right? He's just counting on getting more than the 22 million because he turned down the QO. Okay.
Yeah, there's no rule in baseball that at this point, I mean, there used to be, but there's no rule in baseball that where you can't retain your own free agent if you want to pay the money.
Okay.
So, and the qualifying offer doesn't inhibit the Mets from re-signing him.
Right.
Back in the day, there were dates. I mean, if you didn't sign your own free agent by November 15th, and you didn't, you couldn't sign them again until May 15th. So that person was out in the market as a free agent, fielding offers from other clubs, and the originating club was not part of it.
That's how Carlton Fisk left the Red Sox, because they didn't mail him the contract in time. Right.
Well, and also Tim Raines he had to wait because of collusion, he wound up having to wait until May 15th to return to the Expos.
Oh, right.
But, those dates have all been taken out of the agreement long ago. So, yeah, anybody can sign with anybody at this point.
Okay. Yeah, and anything Diaz signs is going to be a raise because he made $20.4 million last year, and even with the qualifying offer, he still gets a raise. But I guess he's figuring he might get at least 25. I don't know, but now with Jansen, he's 38, so there's that looming I don't want to call it a looming guillotine, but I don't know what else to call it, of how old he is. That will that affect his market at all?
Yeah, I mean, you can use when you go to the analytics and how they figure this stuff out, all of that's going to chip, it's going to play in. But he had a pretty good year for the Angels last year, and they signed him for $12 million.
Hmm.
And it's like, hey, to me, he's a Diamondback. Pete Fairbanks and those guys, they're Diamondbacks. They should be the people who the Diamondbacks should be looking at. I think maybe Robert Suarez.
Hmm.
He had a terrific season,
Yes, he did.
and I think he also has a qualifying offer too, right?
He does not.
Or
They did
did
not
he?
give him one.
Okay, so he's out there as a completely unencumbered free agent.
Hmm.
So he should get some money somewhere from a team that really needs a closer,
Hmm.
whether
Will
it's Mets or Texas or somebody.
Will the Diamondbacks pay the 17 million a year necessary to get him?
Suarez?
Yeah.
No, but I think they will pay what I think the Rays turned down $11 million option on Fairbanks,
Yes.
who was like one of the only guys left from their 2020 American League pennant winning team.
Hmm.
I mean, I think there are two or three guys left, and he was one of them.
Hmm.
And you know, for a new organization with a new ownership, kind of quizzical that they just wouldn't pick up his option. It's not a high ranking option, and it just shows that their own new ownership is going to go the same way as Sternberg and their old ownership, and it's going to be raised continued as usual, just like they have in the past. So it's a bad, you know, portent of things to come for the Rays. But for the Diamondbacks, if that guy has just been had an $11 million option, so 12 million for Jansen or Fairbanks, 12 million for Jansen last year. What if they had spent that money and had Jansen all year last year? The Diamondbacks would have made the playoffs.
If he
The
hadn't blown out
Diamondbacks
his
would have
arm.
made. Well,
It's-
he didn't blow out his arm.
right, he didn't. I was
Right,
making
but
a
I'm talking about Jansen.
right.
I know what you were saying, but
Yeah.
the other guys blew out their arms,
Yeah.
but they wouldn't have had worry about it to that extent if they had Jansen.
Right.
So I mean, and it wouldn't have blown 40 games, which they did.
Hmm.
And if they blew five less games, they make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And if they go to Dodger Stadium instead of the Reds, they give the Dodgers a struggle there because they know how to play the Dodgers. I know the Dodgers were scared to play the Diamondbacks. They did not want the Diamondbacks coming into Dodger Stadium because they knew the Diamondbacks had their number and had beaten them only a couple of years ago.
Hmm.
So, I mean, and they weren't playing on all cylinders at that point either. And in fact, they didn't play on all cylinders. Maybe at the Milwaukee series they did, but in every other round of the playoffs, they struggled,
Hmm.
including the World Series.
Hmm.
Came out to the last pitch to win the World Series.
Right.
So it's like, I mean, if I'm Pete Hazen and I'm like Kendrick, I'm sitting there going, what's the difference between this team and where we were last year? And where were they the year before when they lost by a game? Or, because they wound up in a three-way tie with the Mets in Atlanta. So
Hmm.
you come down where you've had a good enough team 2 years in a row to make the playoffs, and you didn't do it. So what's the difference? What makes your team better? And their bullpen has just been atrocious. You need to fix the bullpen. The other guys, they're not coming back anytime soon.
Right.
Puck,
Oh.
they're not coming back. If they try to run, their starter back from Tommy John surgery early, they're out of their minds because he'll just do it again.
Hmm.
So, they've got to come up with some other people because they're short pitching on both ends. So to me, you got to look at one of those two guys. I think Suarez is a little too expensive for them. That would be like a 3-year contract, $20 million probably.
Hmm.
But, at a year. But certainly You have a guy like Jansen who's done it year in and year out. What are you waiting for? Go out and make a move.
Yeah,
You
and if they're
can't go
worried
in
about
with the
age,
same bullpen.
Fairbanks is 6 years younger than Jansen, and he'll come. I mean, he wouldn't be a bad move for the Diamondbacks, I don't think, and he's certainly
No,
affordable for them.
I think he's perfect for them.
Yeah,
And I've always liked him, regardless of what he did when Cashy pulled Snell out of that game and put him in, and he blew the sixth game of the World Series.
yes. As far as I don't want to keep going too much with this because I still want to talk about the Hall of Fame, but with setup men, the best guys available, it looks like Luke Weaver, Sir Anthony Dominguez, and then Tyler Rogers, Tyler Kinley. And then with middle relievers, Drew Pomeranz and Danny Coulombe, but they're both late 30s as far as age goes. Pierce Johnson is 35. He's available. Chris Martin. There aren't many lefties available, but one who is Jalen Beeks. The Diamondbacks, are they going to bring him back, or are they done with him?
They're probably done with him.
Okay.
But, there's another guy. Why not bring Luke Weaver back to the Diamondbacks?
Yeah.
He was a decent starter there, and then he got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But the Yankees cast him into a pretty darn good reliever. Both 2024, he was their closer, and he did great. This year, he had a pretty good year as a setup guy. So, I mean, and he's not going to cost you a lot of money. And they don't need, and they need more than one reliever.
Right.
So I like Luke Weaver with the Diamondbacks too. The rest of them are just like guys. I mean, it's like you're going to sign him, what you're going to get, and see what rolls out, but probably not very good.
Yeah. All right. Well, the Veterans Committee, the Era Committee, the Contemporary Era Committee meets Sunday. Our mutual friend Jason Stark is on this committee. Tyler Kepner's on there too.
Good luck.
Some players we know.
Good luck for him.
What's that?
Good luck for him on that.
Yeah. This is an interesting ballot. You got Barry Bonds, got Roger Clemens, Gary Sheffield. I think Jeff Kent's on there. Fernando Valenzuela is on there. Dale Murphy, Don Mattingly. I don't recall. Oh, I think Carlos Delgado. I don't recall the rest of them. But what do you see? What's that?
There's only 8, so I think you got them all.
Okay. What are your thoughts, first off, on the guys who are there, and then do you have any predictions?
Part of this problem is, the way the whole thing is set up now. And the new rules, which, like I told you, these iterations of these Veterans Committee and Errors Committee, they change the rules all the time. The most recent rule changes, narrowed the ballot from 10 to 8, narrowed the amount of people you could put on your ballot to 3 from 4. Mm-hmm. And now you've got 16 people, all with different predilections. Some of them are, retired, obviously they're Hall of Famers, players. There's, there's an owner, and Artie Moreno, and, a couple of executives on there. Mm-hmm. There's Tyler Kepner and Jason and Steve Hurt, who always seems to be on these committees as a historian, and I don't blame them. He's pretty erudite when it comes to all this stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, he knows more than I'll ever be able to think of about baseball and minutia. Mm-hmm. But it's you're in a situation here where, for Bonds and Clemens, you're going to really need very favorable committee for them to get in. And I just don't see. I could see Juan Marichal is another one of the guys who's on it. Yeah, I could see him. I could see him voting for Barry. Uh-huh. I could see Jason voting for Barry because he's got a history of it. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure where Tyler stands on all the steroid guys, because I don't think he's talked much about it, and I'm not sure he's a guy who releases his ballot every year or not. But I seem to think he doesn't, because if he did, I would know. I would know what his thoughts were on these things. So I think he's pretty quiet about it. And then the rest of the people on the committee, I think the wild card in all of this is Trump. Trump has already come down and said Roger Clemens needs to be in the Hall of Fame. Do it. He wrote, "Thank you for your attention to this matter."
Gotta have Roger Clemens in there. Gotta have him. Yeah, exactly.
But in the Hall of Fame committee, you cannot put Roger Clemens in, or you cannot put Clemens in and not put Bonds in.
Right.
I mean, they're tied to the hip.
Right.
And so, it would be completely racist for them to put in Clemens but not Bonds. The storm over it would be atrocious, and it's something they don't need just to accommodate Trump. But on the other hand, if they feel that it's time for Clemens, and maybe the word has come down to give these guys a better look, and the people on the committee go, well, we can't put in Clemens and not put in Bonds. Maybe those two get in.
Yeah.
You just don't know. I mean, that's the wild card in the whole thing at this point.
Yeah,
Chances are.
Some of the other guys are Fergie Jenkins is on this committee. Jim Cott's on this committee. Jenkins has spoken out against the steroid guys. Cott has spoken out in favor of them. So.
Yeah. So, but still, you need 12.
Right.
So if I look at the committee, if you're looking objectively, I don't see coming up with 12 guys to vote those people in.
Yeah,
and
if 5 people say no, they're not in. So, yeah.
And then you have the adverse of it, where if they get less than 5 votes, then they're not eligible for the next contemporary ballot.
Mm-hmm.
And so 6 more years, they'd be eligible again. Mm-hmm. And if they don't get 4 or 5 votes the second time, then they're no longer eligible for the Hall of Fame.
What's the point of those 2 rules? I haven't understood the reason behind any reasoning behind those 2 rules. Do you have any idea?
Yeah, there's only one reason behind any of these rules, and it was the rule when they changed our ballot from 15 to 10, in the middle of Bonds and Clemens and McGuire and everybody being on it. Mm-hmm. It was to give the steroid guys a shorter tenure on these ballots. And then when, now it's the next one, not this year, but in 2 years, you're going to have Pete Rose on the ballot, undoubtedly. Mm-hmm. And then if he doesn't get, 4 votes, then it'll be the same thing with him. And, in another time, he'll be off the ballot. Mm-hmm. So it just says, okay, these guys are not eligible for the Hall of Fame at time immemorial. Let's drop it. And it's not fair. And I don't think it's in the spirit of what the Hall of Fame should be doing. But I'm not on the board of the Hall of Fame. I'm not James Forbes Clark. I'm not, on these committees. I've been so critical of the Hall of Fame over the course of the years that I don't think they'd ever put me on one of these committees, mm-hmm. which is to their detriment. If there is anybody who should be on a Barry Bonds committee, it should be me, because I covered him as closely as anybody.
Yeah. Plus, you have the same first name, so there's that too. I'm just kidding, but anyway. Yeah.
And the same 2 first initials also.
Right.
So we each call each other BB.
Right.
But my whole thing with this is, at some time in the distant future, when we're all, dead and gone, there will be more enlightened leadership of the Hall of Fame, and they will do a committee for these steroid guys, just like they did with the Negro Leagues. Mm-hmm. And they will give a relook at all of them, and they will vote them into the Hall of Fame with an asterisk or whatever they want to do, the line on the plaque saying, either with Alex, it would be, he was suspended for a year, mm-hmm. in an analytical, decision on that he did PEDs and he admitted it, mm-hmm. or with Bonds, that he never admitted it, but he played in an era where he was suspected of doing PEDs. Now, if you did that with Bonds now, and you told him you're in the Hall of Fame, but we're going to put this on your plaque, I think he would blow up and he would not show up for the induction ceremony.
I think you're right.
I mean, he was really pissed that they put the ball on display with the asterisk on it that was hit for his 756th home run, or 755th home run.
Yeah.
Whatever broke Aaron's record.
756 broke the record, yeah.
That's sitting there in a case in the front of the Hall of Fame. And then I wrote about it a couple of years ago. It's been there for a long time. And, he's just done with it. Doesn't want to talk about it anymore. Doesn't want people to write about it anymore. So I don't know. I mean, I think if it was Pete and he was still alive, and you put on his plaque that he was suspended from baseball for gambling, he'd say, "Sure, put whatever you want on my plaque. I want the black." But I think, and I don't know what Roger would do, because I really, in all the years I've spoken to Barry about it at length, I've never had one word with Roger about it.
Okay. Yeah, hard to say.
I tried to talk to Roger. I've been rebuffed by his agents and lawyers, and they protect him. So maybe they don't want him saying anything that's going to screw his chances up long term. But, and as far as the rest of the ballot goes, I just don't see any of those guys getting in. I mean, Mattingly, love him, but he has said, and he's told me he doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. He had a short career. It ended with injuries, personal problems. He had a great first 10 years, maybe, and, Carlos Delgado in the Hall of Fame. Really, if you are pissed that Harold Baines is in the Hall of Fame, what happens when they put in Carlos Delgado?
Well, really Delgado didn't he hit like 450 home runs?
It doesn't matter. So did Andrew Jones, and he doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame either. So, it's like Dale Murphy hit 399, he doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. I mean, they're good players. They're not great players.
Yeah.
I mean, Baines had 2,800 hits.
And 1,580 something RBI or something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, he's not a catastrophic pick for the Hall of Fame.
Everyone with 1,500 RBI except for the steroid guys are in.
So on this ballot, I think I was reading in my friend John Shea's article on Bonds today. He said that not one person on this ballot, except for Bonds and Clemens, got more than 6% of our vote. Now, I may be misquoting it, I may be wrong, or misconstruing it, but I think
Gary Sheffield got way more than that.
Nobody was even close to being elected to the Hall of Fame on this.
Gotcha.
On our ballot.
Yeah, Sheffield topped out at what, like 65 or something like that?
I don't even know that he got that far.
Okay, yeah.
Mattingly got more than 40, and I don't know where I saw that 6%, but
yeah, and I don't think Dale Murphy got more than 6. I think you're right on that. I think you're right on that one, for sure. Now, you mentioned Alex Rodriguez.
Right.
There was that HBO special that recently came out that you highly recommended to me that I haven't had a chance to watch yet, but I plan on watching. You wrote an article that went up within the last 2 or 3 days about A-Rod and your ballot. So go ahead and share with us what you haven't voted for Alex Rodriguez before, but you are now. So why don't you share that with us?
Actually, I have voted for A-Rod before.
Oh, okay.
He's gone on and off my ballot. I mean, I had a ballot a couple of years ago where I got so pissed at the whole situation that it was a total steroid ballot. Just about everybody on the ballot, was tied to steroids in some way or another, except maybe the person who got in that year. And so, I have voted for Alex. I have a complicated relationship with Alex. I don't think he really cares about me one iota, but still, it's after watching the HBO special, and he did a mea culpa
Hmm.
about what he did it in baseball, and that he was wrong.
Hmm.
He effed up, as he said. My feeling is everybody deserves a second chance, and the guy was probably one of the greatest baseball players I've ever seen.
Definitely.
I mean, in the 2000 playoffs, the AL Championship Series, when the Mariners played the Yankees,
Hmm.
he was still playing shortstop. I think he batted 400. He did everything he could to carry that team in that championship series that I think they lost in 6 games.
Correct.
You know, the Yeah, and then the 2009 World Series, and that whole playoffs, he carried the Yankees. He had a monster postseason. That
Yes.
was his postseason, like Bonds in 2002 for the Giants. You
Yeah.
know, and uh, finally, my favorite factoid is that there are only two players in baseball history who've hit more than 600 homers, had more than 3,000 hits, more than 2,000 RBIs, and 2,000 runs scored. Aaron is one of them, and A-Rod is the other. And he came damn close to matching Aaron with 700 home runs because he fell only four short
Yeah.
when the Yankees stopped the clock on him.
Right. And
And the
anytime
Yankees
you can
didn't have
be
to stop.
said the only other guy to do this is Hank Aaron, you're in good shape there.
I mean, if you're saying, people look at and they tell me, well, Aaron Judge is probably the greatest right-handed hitter in history, and I go, well, first of all, you have to start with Hank Aaron, and then you have Mays, you have, but I would put A-Rod even above Mays
Yeah.
as the top right-handed hitter.
Yeah. For
Well,
me, it's Hank Aaron, but I mean, with total bases, if you make every base 90 feet, number two on the list of total bases behind Hank Aaron is Albert Pujols, and Hank Aaron is over 9 miles ahead of him.
right,
That's absurd to me. I mean, plus taking away all of his home runs, he still has 3,000 hits. That's crazy to me, also.
right.
So the rest of your Hall of Fame ballot, let's close with that. You wrote a piece on that. Who is on the rest of your Hall of Fame ballot? I don't want to take people away from reading your article, but just to kind of
Oh, no, it's the article's out, so
okay.
I mean it was a tough ballot. I mean, I've been voting for the Hall of Fame since 1992. It's
Hmm.
probably the weakest ballot I've ever seen.
Hmm.
And there's not one of the not only does there not one of the first timers on the ballot who deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, but I think it's going to be close that all of them don't even get 5% to carry over.
Right.
That's how bad the ballot is.
The
And
only
then
one who
you get,
has even a chance is Cole Hamels, and even then, he's not a guarantee to get 5%. Yeah.
so, then you're left with, Beltran, who got 70% last year, and I think he needs something like 18 votes to get
Yeah.
in. He should be able to make up the 18 votes, and he's
Yeah.
also got some time.
Mhm.
This is only his fourth year maybe on the ballot for
Yeah.
him. Yeah, so um, so it's sort of like I have to like pinch my nose about that one because of his involvement with the Astros in the sign stealing caper of 2017, his last year as a player,
Right.
and how involved he was in that. And so
Yeah,
it's
and he
like,
wasn't just involved with it; he was the ringleader.
right, so you're
Yeah.
basically putting a known cheater into the Hall of Fame.
Right.
But I voted for him anyway because he had a terrific career otherwise.
Yeah.
And, I think when he was with the Yankees, I wrote a column, years ago
Hmm.
that if he if he got on when he gets on the ballot, I would probably vote him into the Hall of Fame before all this happened.
Right.
And then, Andy Pettit is like he's a mainstay for me. I voted for him every year that he's been on the ballot, and I think it's his seventh. And he
Yes.
had 254 or something career wins. 19 in the playoffs. The Yankees don't win the World Series. He won 5 times. They don't win the World Series, any of them, without him.
Right.
He's up there in Whitey Ford territory to me as one of the greatest left-handers in Yankee history. I'm not sure why he doesn't get any, traction on his ballot. I can't imagine that him admitting that he did HGH to get him back on the field should be held really highly against him. But we're weird when it comes to starting pitchers. Why would we vote in Mike Messina and it took 6 years to get him in and he didn't win the World Series and he had 270 wins, but we're not voting in Andy Pettitte? Where does it make any sense not to? So yeah, I'll vote for Pettitte for the rest of the time he's on the ballot. And then Rollins and Jimmy Rollins and Chase Utley, I just have an affinity for because, they were so good with the Phillies in that infield when the Phillies won the World Series in 2008 and lost to the Yankees in 2009. It was a great Philly era. And somebody asked me online, because, when you vote for these things, somebody said, well, there's at least 8 people on that ballot you could have voted for who are better than those guys. And I said, well, first of all, I vote, and most people I think do vote position by position. They don't.
Absolutely.
You're not going to choose an outfielder over a shortstop. So then what you do is you look at all the shortstop's numbers or the second baseman's numbers, and then you make a decision on that. So it's amazing how close Rollins' numbers are to Ozzy's. Their batting average is 2 points apart. They have like 100 or so less hits. Their fielding percentage, Rollins actually has a better fielding percentage than Ozzy. They both won the World Series once. There's your comparison.
I think Rollins had more triples. I think he had more triples than Ozzy. But yeah,
I didn't go that deep.
Right,
but it doesn't matter.
Right,
If you're looking for a shortstop to compare Rollins to, it's Ozzy.
Right,
that's it.
And as far as the 21st century goes, how many shortstops in the 21st century were better than Jimmy Rollins? For my money, only Jeter. That's it. As far as the career goes,
he's a better fielding shortstop than Jeter.
Oh, definitely, yeah. As far as all-around shortstops of the 21st century, the only one for my money who was better overall than Rollins was Jeter. That has to factor into it, shouldn't it?
And plus, he played his entire career. Jeter played his entire career at short. Rollins pretty much played his entire career at short. It's not like Ripken, who moved to third base in the last few years of his career.
Right.
So it's not like A-Rod, who was a much better shortstop than Jeter, but he conceded to move to third base for Jeter. Jeter should have moved to third base because Alex was a much better shortstop. But, be that as it may, it's like one thing that stuck out to me about Scott Rowland when I was looking about should I vote for the Hall of Fame, and when I looked at it, that he played every game of his career at third base.
Yeah.
No, there was no DH back then, so he played in the National League, so there was no other place for him to go. It's not like Chipper played in the outfield. Schmidt played most of his career at third.
He played some
Robinson
first,
played
but
most of his career.
Yeah, he played most of his career at third.
Yeah. Right, but there's not that many players like that, who played their whole career at their primary position.
Even Eddie Matthews didn't play every game at third base, right?
That I'm not sure. I wouldn't want to take that off the top of my head. I think he probably played some first base, right?
Yeah, I think he did.
And I know Chipper played some first base too, right?
Yeah, he did. He did, yeah. So yeah, and
so I think I don't think it's a stretch to pick Rollins for the Hall of Fame.
Nah,
but you look at the infield they had. I mean, Cheech at third and Rollins and Howard and Utley. It's a hell of an infield there that was together on that team for a number of years.
Absolutely,
it's like Garvey Lopes,
and Bill Russell.
Russell infield. Yeah, that played 8.5 years for the Dodgers.
And came up through the minors together even too. Those four guys.
Exactly.
Yeah. I have yet to hear a convincing argument against Jimmy Rollins being in the Hall of Fame. Everybody I've heard try and say why he shouldn't. It's been silly arguments to me, but I don't have a vote yet, so But this is my show, so I can say that. So, Barry,
say whatever
what's that?
You can say whatever you want.
Of course, and I will do my annual tradition of my mock ballot, hoping for that day in the future, if I ever get in the Writers Association, and then I'm in for 10 years when I finally get one that counts. Until that day, I'm going to keep writing a mock one every year. So, viewers, you can expect that later this month. Barry, do you have anything to plug?
No, I'm in the middle of getting my 1984 Padres book done. It's due by April. I'm
looking forward to reading that. That'll be a fun one to read. That team was a circus, but it was also a great ball club. So, well, Barry, thank you. It's always a treat to have you. You've been on twice now. If we have you one more time, you'll be officially known as a friend of the show and join the club along with Bob Nightingale and Jose Romero. So, I'm looking forward to the next time you're on.
I expect that to happen.
What's that?
Okay. Do I get anything as a friend of the show? Any parting gifts?
I'm gonna have to come up with something for you, for all of you guys. So, but anyway, Barry, like I was saying, it's always a treat to have you. Thanks for coming by. You have great stories, great insights. Once again, Barry Bloom. We'll be right back, so don't go away. That concludes this installment of Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza from Sport Relay. Join us next time. I will be at the winter meetings in Orlando this coming week, so we may have some stuff from there. Never know, but you don't want to miss it, so be sure to subscribe to us here. Also, follow our show on X at RRBB_show. I'm Evan Thompson. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like. Click subscribe so you'll never miss an episode of this show or of our other show, Trade Trees. Tell your friends and baseball contacts. If you haven't done so yet, consider buying my books, A Complete History of the Major League Baseball Playoffs, Volume 1 and Volume 2. There are links in the description box below this video. And finally, bookmark and regularly visit sportrelay.com. Until next time, this is Evan Thompson saying so long for now.